right, this is the Budget Committee. This is Wednesday, June 18, 2014. We're at 6 p.m. I have Council Capone.
Here.
I have Council Telescope.
Here.
I have Council DeFleury. I have Council Hanlon.
Here.
I have Council Marquez.
Here.
I have Council McKinnon.
Here.
I have Council Napolitano.
Here.
I have Council Suchinetta.
Here.
I have Council Sargent. And I have Council Simonelli.
Yeah.
Your time, Mr. President.
We do have a quorum, and Councilor McGonigal will be about
Go ahead, okay.
Councilor McGonigal will be about half an hour late. He has a previous engagement. We want to stand the council.
A little bit of procedure, and that means nothing to you guys, I know, but last night we had, our guest was over here, this whole row couldn't see him. I'm gonna ask if you guys wouldn't just let someone have a little chair, if you would move over one, just so that our guest can come and see in the middle, so we can see him. I couldn't, I couldn't see who was talking to. Thank you. Thank you. But you know what I mean? When that happens, I appreciate that.
Could we please stand and salute the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Oh, no, I'm sorry.
What's that?
I didn't know you were Chris. I'm sorry.
First, we have the executive department. That'll be section 16, page 2. And I believe there's just 1 or 2 pages, so just do the first page and the second page, as Ms. Sani reminded me the other day.
Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Napolitano.
Thank you. Through you to the mayor. The auto allowance, that's being added this year. What is that? And who is that for?
Is on? That's, we've had that. We've just increased it.
Actually, there was nothing expended in the last 2 years.
It was called in-state travel before. I'm sorry, Counselor. It's for, going to meetings, driving to meetings, MAPC, Metro Mayors, U.S. Conference, parking garages, all that stuff.
All right, so last year, the amount used was, or the budget was $5,200.
Yes.
Why are you anticipating an extra $4,800 this year?
Because the amount of travel I've been doing, going to these meetings, and even parking in garages, I've probably spent close to, every time you go to a garage in Boston, it's $40, $45, $50. So it's been getting very expensive.
Okay, aren't those fees, though, reimbursable?
I've never submitted them. No, I use that line item.
Thank you.
Councilor Capone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the mayor. I'm looking at the expenses, and you've got a other expenses category line that you're funding for $20,000 that wasn't funded last year. Could you explain what that is?
Right, that's going to be for the Collins Center. They're doing another study for us now. They're doing actually a city study for department heads' wage study for us. So I'm using that to pay that. You'll see that when it comes through bills and accounts.
So wage study, that's
And Everstat.
That's to set salaries, is that what that is?
They just recently did a whole organization for us study. Now they're doing a salary study for us. It's also Everstat, so that's they're doing a analysis of our DPW department, our police department, and I believe just those 2 departments. And they're doing overtime analysis, sick time analysis for us, gas use for us, a lot of different things that we don't have the resources to do. So they, bringing them in, they have a lot more staff to come in and do these studies for us and tell us who's abusing what and how do we stop the abuse.
Okay. And then another line item is official celebrations, which was budgeted for $28,500 last year and is almost double this year. It's $55,000. Could you explain why?
We just can't seem to get good headliners at our events, City Fest or not Homecoming, City Fest, our 4th of July event, Christmas holiday events. And last year we had, during the Christmas event, we had some different stuff. I know Mayor Hanlon was there and some other people, but we've had the horse and carriage rides for the kids. We're just trying to beef up the events to make them more appealing to people. We're really trying to get a decent headliner for our September City Festival, something that will draw a crowd of residents. And some of these bands, even the bands that we had, they usually get about a couple thousand, 2,500, but we're trying to get like I don't know if you remember one time we had not the Platters, we had Tavares here. So we're trying to get those types of groups here in the community and we also doing the senior events. We did a little more of the senior events this year through the Comedy Center.
Okay. And then on this particular page, page 2, the only other question I have deals with salaries, and I know it's broken out in other areas, and I guess we'll get into that page by page, but the growth in the salary goes from 470 budgeted last year for a request of 603 for an increase of just about 26%. That's a
Right.
pretty big increase.
Right, so two of our employees went from part-time to full-time. So that's a good portion of it right there. Yes, we added the 2 city greeters. That came out of actually some of our meetings with our immigrant community. They have a hard time communicating with the residents here, the people in City Hall. I've tried to fight it back for the last 5 or 6 years. It's finally come to the point that we've had to take, let's say, the paralegal out of the legal office and send her downstairs to talk to a resident and explain their water bill or their trash tickets, or send them to ISD. So I think it's time that we have dedicated people. We have, as you know, I have someone in my office who speaks Haitian Creole. She does a lot of work through the office with the Haitian residents. So we're looking to get a Portuguese, a Spanish-speaking employee, and another maybe Haitian Creole-speaking greeter.
Right.
And they may be, we have down for 2 full-time and maybe 4 part-times, depending on what languages they speak. I mean, they will also do more than just greeting. They'll actually work with the different department heads, like they do now with the ISD. They work with the legal department. They work with ISD's code enforcement. They work with the Board of Health. We've had lots of bed bug issues. Explain to residents about what precautions and what they have to do in their homes to keep their homes clean. So a lot of our employees that work in these departments don't speak their language. So.
Okay. And I don't want to reach to the other pages because I want to make sure that we're doing it page by page, correct?
Yes, we are.
All right, so I don't want to reach into other pages, but I understand what you're trying to do, but there's only so much money to go around, and, obviously we can't cut your budget. There's nothing we can touch there. But, when we had the parking folks downstairs, they weren't multilingual, but they did act as a greeter. They were able to cover a couple of different jobs at the same time. And now we're creating more expense, and I know you're trying to do that to, reach out to the entire community. And the one thing I do want to say, though, is, I've got my issues about the things, and we'll talk about them. But I will say that your staff is wonderful. You've got great people around you. I've known many of them my whole life. Every time I call your office, I get a response and I get action. So I really appreciate that. But I know we're trying to do everything we can. We all would love to do everything, but there's only so much money to go around. So personally, I have some issues with some things that are in there. I can't do anything about it, but I just want to voice my concern on that.
And I appreciate that, and thank you for that compliment. And they most of them go above and beyond. They don't really work just the hours here at City Hall. Snowstorms, most of us in the building. We have phones. All the city events, they're always there at them. They partake in what goes on in the community, which is nice to see that my office does that. And to be honest with you, if you were to ever have a conversation with our human resources director, Bob Dion, he may tell you about some of the conversations or complaints he's had from the parking department in regards to how they handle some of the immigrant residents, community residents. For instance, one employee asked a woman who had a turban on if she spoke English. that's not really what you're supposed to be doing. I mean, just because someone wears, displays a different type of clothing or something doesn't mean that they're not. Actually, she's a professor at Harvard University. She lives here in Everett. So she was really offended by it, and I was able to talk to her and get her from taking any action against the city. So these people will be trained. We are trying to institute customer service training with all of our clerical staff, but it's actually in the budget now. But our greeters will be trained for customer service and how to deal with, in our CFO, our auditor or CFO, I call him, will tell you what the conversations he has heard outside his office by that in that area. So they're not. We're trying to really just put out some fires and get people to understand that City Hall is not a bad place, and work with our residents. So, but thank you for the compliments.
Councilor Del Sola.
Yes, Mayor, in-state travel. I notice there's nothing in the budget at all for the upcoming year. Is that just,
So we took that in-state travel and we put it into the auto allowance.
okay, thank you.
Councilor McKinnon.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the mayor. You mentioned the study. Now, is that the same study that was mentioned before with the UMass? Is that the same?
The same group, they did that, they did the reorganization for us, and I think you see that in your budget.
Uh-huh.
And they talked about that's one of the things they came up with, the parking department. The parking department should be down in the police department, because it's a 24-hour building, and people need to access and so forth. So they're also doing that, it's called Everstat, or CityStat, where City of Somerville has it, Amesbury has it, where they go into departments and figure out, why is this department using so much overtime? Why is there an abuse of sick time? Why is all this gas? They really kind of
Knuckle it down for you.
they knuckle it down for you. They work with you and how to change, put certain new restrictions in place for the different departments. They work in the police department right now and DPW, which is two of our biggest departments.
Now, are they going to be doing every department within the city, or are they just going to
Just those two, those two right now. And they're also doing a survey and a salary study for us, for our department heads, and try to make it, if we're paying them too high or paying them too little, just so we have something that actually will provide that for you also.
so you can get a medium on them?
Right.
Let me see. Now, what group is that again? And it's
That's
out of UMass,
That's
correct?
the UMass Collins Center.
Okay, and what are we paying for that study?
$6,000 for the salary study,
For the salary study, and then per department?
and we got a grant for the Everstat
Okay.
for this year.
And then, will that be additional spending for next year, or?
You want to answer that?
So we applied for and we got a grant for 14 for the Everstat program. They've been here for approximately 6 months doing the study of the two departments. We'd like to continue on. We have seen some good results with it, especially in the overtime and in the gas areas right now. So we have a contract that we haven't signed yet pending the budget, where we would sign on for the two departments for a year.
Okay, and that grant will cover that
So the
cost?
grant covered the 6 months up till now.
Okay.
So July 1st we would have to start paying.
And then what would be the cost of that?
It's $15,000 an department.
Per department?
Per department,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank
which
you
is why
very
we
much.
chose to.
Thank you.
Councilor Hanlon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to our mayor. The dues for Mass Municipal Association is $9,900. That includes you and the city council?
Yeah,
Yes,
it's
it
for the whole
does.
city, yes.
Does it include anyone else? I mean,
Yeah.
like to the,
Anyone can go. Any city council, anyone in the city, any employee of the city could go to those meetings.
to this convention?
Yes,
I mean, well, these meetings. I
these
don't mean
meetings,
convention, Okay.
correct.
And the U.S. Conference of Mayors, I know what that is. And the dues for Metro Mayor?
They went up this year, right?
No, they stayed level.
Oh,
but
they stayed, they are
I'm
gonna
just
go up.
surprised
over
at the $10,000. When did that happen? I thought it was like two. Used to be two,
Was it?
yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, but I see it was up there for 2013 also. Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Simonelli.
Put my microphone on. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you to the mayor. I don't know if this is mentioned already, but the Was the other expenses mentioned already? That was already mentioned? Just want, again, what was that, what was that 20,000 used for, again, please?
That was what we just talked about, the Collins Center, and the studies, the salary studies, the Everstat studies. Everstat is working with different departments, and
All right, sorry for that. Thank you.
that's okay.
Do we have any more questions on page 2? Page 3? Counselor Capone?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the mayor. Could you just explain what the reserve fund is? That's the only item I think that's on there, but.
Right. We use it for a multitude of things, and Richard, you want to talk more about it, if you'd like?
Mayor's salary reserve account for collective bargaining agreements that haven't been settled yet primarily, and the salary study that's being done may come along with some recommendations to adjust salaries to keep salaries competitive with the similar sized communities. So any funding for those supplemental salary increases would be funded through the mayor's salary reserve account. Most collective bargaining agreements, I believe actually all of them expire on June 30th of 2014, and we're currently in negotiations with them all. So we only built into the budget the known steps increases that come along with anyone who goes from a step 2 to a step 3 or what have you, but we haven't built in any cushion for negotiated salary increases for any of the unions. So that $400,000 is a placeholder, so we have a funding source once we settle a contract.
To follow up on that.
And that has to always, any money spent from there has to come before you for an approval. So we can approve that in the budget, but you have the final approval on how it's spent.
Yeah, the council would move that from this account to the
To
appropriate
wherever.
account.
If
As
it's
a matter
to
of fact,
settle a contract with the police superior unions or.
As a matter of fact, for fiscal year 14, as we close out this year, we still have the $400,000, and we're going to be submitting a council order tomorrow to move money from the fiscal year 14 salary reserve to the appropriate budgets. Try to wait close to the end of the year so we can make sure we allocate the correct amounts, and some budgets may need less or more depending on attrition and whatnot.
I noticed that fiscal year 2013, there was no expenditure, so everything went smooth, I take it.
I think all negotiations were settled the prior year.
We spent $612,000, that just for some reason it doesn't fall within this special purpose budget. Remember, this software that you're looking at, this is the new SoftWrite accounting system, so it may have been categorized as something different in the old Vadar software, so this is the new software going forward.
So in fiscal year 2013, there was actually $612,000 worth of
That's right,
matters that had to be dealt with?
right.
Okay. And now for fiscal year 2014, I see a negative number.
That's
How does that happen?
That's, we made a transfer from the reserve account, but it was an error, so we credited back the account for $10,000. So that's an entry on the accounting side when we had some money that credited back in there. So we actually, the way you can look at that is that we actually have $410,521 in that account right now.
Okay, so nothing has been expended in fiscal year 2014?
No, this is the rare account that the only action was money put back in there. You don't see that too
Well,
often.
that's a good thing. You can find a way to do that, we'll do that in everything.
Yeah, right?
But, okay, thank you, I have no other questions.
You're welcome.
Gee, a question, last year's budget to this year's budget, we know there's an increase. How much of an impact would it have on a household in Everett, on a family? How much would the taxes go up for?
That's kind of a tough question to answer right now. I mean, we have projected amount of tax dollars we would need to balance this budget, and I believe it was $90 million. That was what the PowerPoint presentation was on Monday night. We don't know exactly what the tax rate's going to be and how that's going to be allocated until the Department of Revenue certifies all of our values and how that's spread out through all the residential, commercial, industrial, personal property. So there could be certain areas of the buildings in the city. Industrial property could go up 10%, residential could go down 2%. It's all varying, and then when you take that as a cumulative, you find out what the effect would be on a single family, a multifamily, a commercial business, an industrial business. So I wouldn't want to,
Those two tough teams
I wouldn't want to state a
ballpark
number right now. It's something we'd have a little better picture on right around November, December, when we're doing the tax rate.
Okay.
I mean, we know how much we think we're gonna need in taxes, but how that would spread out is something I'd be better prepared to speak on later. And as we said at our Monday night's meeting as well, there may be some action on the mayor's behalf of monies appropriated to help reduce that tax rate as well. So right now, we might be looking at 90 million, but if we have a nice, healthy free cash certification in the fall, we have the parking receipts that we haven't submitted for, to offset the tax levy. So there's still some moving parts in there right now.
I just wanted to ask that, because it's just so much, so many millions of dollars out here, and as at home, they're watching all these numbers fly by them the last 3 nights, and
I just hate to be tied to a number and have it
Right.
come off that I'm not giving you a correct answer. I'll be on the money with that.
okay. All right, thank you.
Councilor McKinnon.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Viskey, how much, all right, I don't want a breakdown of what a 3-family is, a 2-family, or a 1-family would be. What I want is, how much room do we have under the levy right now to work with?
According to the presented budget and our forecast.
Just so everyone at home can understand that.
Yeah, on Monday night, we did the presentation, and we're assuming that the levy limit would be $93.5 million. We're proposing a budget that uses $90 million to balance the budget, which would leave us, I believe the number was about $3.6 million in excess capacity. So if something.
That would be our wiggle room?
So we have taxing capacity, which, I mean, it's good and bad. We want to control taxes and keep it affordable, but there are some communities that don't have that capacity, and if something comes up, they have no way to fund it. So it's a good message for the bond rating agencies and the Department of Revenue to show that we actually have taxing capacity that we're not using. We've been under the levy limit since I've been here for the past, this will be the 3rd year.
Now, your forecast for the future, that would keep us under the levy limit as well?
Well, you have a 5-year forecast. Typically, by design, sometimes those maybe look worse than they appear because of the projections. We like to project the revenues conservatively and project some expenditures a little more aggressively, just so we can kind of keep ourselves honest. But the way I look at it, we're in pretty good shape, and we have some pretty good stuff coming down the road with debt service being retired, a power plant coming off, and of course the potential of a casino gaming license would all be great things. But right now we're in good shape. And if you read the 5-year forecast, you'll get a little better feel. And I don't want to bore everybody with the details, but I do a pretty comprehensive review of that in your budget book.
Okay. And so basically, when we're hitting fall, like you said, we should be in good shape then.
I don't see any problem with balancing the budget. It's just a matter of trying to keep taxes affordable for everybody and maintaining the services that everybody in the city provides.
Because this is our time right now to cut, if we were going to cut anything, if we need to. We don't want to actually have to say, oh, and then hear it, well, you should have did that back then.
Well,
What my question is are we in good enough shape so that in the fall, when you do come back to us, we're not going to be saying, oh, we're close to that levy limit or anything like that. Your forecast is right on the money. It should be there and anticipated.
From my perspective, on behalf of the mayor,
Your professional opinion.
This budget as presented has been vetted through. It's been modified. Cuts have been made between the city departments, and this is a responsible, balanced budget, and we have, at this point, no problem. And again, we have $3.6 million of taxing capacity, along with, other reserve accounts that could help weather any kind of unforeseen. Back in 2008, you've seen the governor cut state aid, and then you have to get into cutting budgets or using reserves. So we're well prepared for any of those situations that may arise.
If we needed, say, an additional $1.5 million for our schools, would we be all set at that point?
Well, we have $3.6 million of tax capacity, so it could be through taxes, it could be through reserves, it could be through free cash. We definitely have some options. We have some flexibility. So, again, this budget is no issues with this budget as presented.
Okay, because, like I said, I just don't want to come back in the fall and then, it's us. We're sitting here saying, oh, well, we should have did it back then. We don't want to do that. We want to do it now if we have to do it. So, in your professional opinion, right now, this is the best case scenario for us, for the city to move forward.
I'm certainly not going to recommend you cutting any money from this budget.
Thank you, that's what I wanted to hear.
And remember one thing, Council, if you don't count money for the budget, it's the fault of us right here. So if you're not happy then, so. At this time, when we go to section 18, page 2, if there's not many questions left there. And right here it says that there's no funded unfilled positions in 18.2. And no money will be turned back to the city. If you have any questions, Councilor DeFlorio?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. Mayor Di Maria, in regards to the constituent service, multi-language, that you want to put in, we don't have anybody that will volunteer their time. I mean, I don't mean to sound rude in any way, but we all had to come to this country to learn how to speak English, and I think we're giving up too much. The cable TV is all in different languages. You have to learn how to speak English. And when we came over here, your parents came over here from Italy. What did they do? They had to take your uncle over here, somebody to translate for them. I'm willing to help the immigrants. Tell them to call me. I'll come up here with them. But for the taxpayers to have to pay 2 full-time employees for different languages, I don't think it's right. I don't feel it's right. I'm sorry. And I say it very clearly. And I tell the immigrants the same thing.
You know, and a lot of your taxpayers are those immigrants, so they also deserve some people that look and speak the same languages they speak. I mean, a lot of your residents here in Everett are no longer like you. They're a lot different from a lot of different countries, so they're paying taxes. And you know, there are some that we all know that maybe aren't, but there are a lot that are and that come to this building. They own properties. I mean, we had, you know, a gentleman who just recently owed us a big water bill, wasn't paying. It was, you know, his house was foreclosing on. We explained it to him. He came back from the bank with a check for, you know, $20,000 to pay his bill. So, you know, there, you know, I don't know if Peter remembers, Councilman Napolitano remembers, but in one of our meetings we had when we were running for mayor, the immigrant community was, you know, having a hard time coming to City Hall, and you know, a lot of them taxpayers, and not being able to get some of the things, their applications translated for them. You know, you're right. I mean, this is the United States of America. Everyone should speak English, but it's also the United States of America, the land of opportunity, where lots of immigrants come to. So it's not like it's Italy or France or Spain, where every one of those countries are Italian or French or Spanish. In America, it's always been an immigrant community since the day it started. You know, everybody's an immigrant from somewhere, it's a small token. And it makes our lives a lot easier. Just today, you know, we're looking for someone to translate. You know, they're being evicted from the projects up in veteran, and they don't speak a certain language. We're searching to find someone that spoke that language, and we did, and now we're helping them out, and they understand what they were doing, and you know, now they're able to hopefully be able to resolve that. Yeah, and they'll be helping English speakers too. They'll be, you know, directing. There are a lot of people come here that just need some information. You know, their barrel got stolen. How to fill out a report. You'll see some of the employees that are working in my office downstairs there. You know, it'll be almost like the mayor's office, where instead of coming up to the 3rd floor, where sometimes, you know, some of the older people have a hard time coming up, there will be people down there like Steve Supino or Jerry Navarra. They'll be down at that office. They'll be also assisting residents down there. So
I mean, I understand the economy is really bad and you have a lot more workload. I understand that. It's not like it used to be, and you have people coming up here for different reasons, whether they're getting evicted or whether they lost their homes or whether they're out in the middle of the street or whether they're homeless. I understand that, and your office is great. But it seems to me that this is overwhelming right now, what's being added on. And I know that the mayor's pay was increased. I just want to make that known from last year to now, so that's a little bit of an increase also. So the councilors did that.
You can do it again if you'd like.
As a matter of fact, when you do the study, would you ask them to put the councilors in that study?
Absolutely, sure.
Thank you.
Sure.
Councilor
Thank you.
Napolitano.
Thank you. I just want to comment on just a little bit of discussion with the bilingual section. I've had an opportunity to work with the bilingual community, the Spanish and the Brazilian population in the city. I mean, the thing is that, and in this area, some of the few hits we will agree, unlike our grandparents who came here from Western Europe, you know, whether Italian, Irish, German, French, English was the common language, so that was their way to be able to communicate with their neighbors. The influx of immigrants coming in today, coming up from South America, they already have a common language, and that's Spanish. So the incentive for them to learn English is different than our grandparents were. We need to recognize that, and we do need to have some accessibility, so when these people do come up, they are made to feel part of the community and don't become a problem to us. When you don't have that communication, you got a problem. And that's when things start breaking down and people don't show any respect for their neighborhoods. So I just wanted to add that in, that there is a slight difference. And there's been several studies that document that, if anybody could find them online. Thank you.
Councilor Capone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to touch base on what I had said a little earlier. Again, I think your staff is great, but you've got a constituent services division now that you want to break out, and salaries are going up $133,000 over fiscal year 14. And obviously, in the day and age that we're in, money's tight. Everybody's trying to make do with what they've got. They've got to stretch their budget at home. And, you know, just my 2 cents, I think we need to set the example here at City Hall. I understand what you're trying to do, but, and again, we can't do anything about that. Just mention to you what our concerns are, what our thoughts are. I'm assuming that these greeter positions are probably, there's 2 of them, so they're probably part-time? Or-
No, those are full-time positions.
Okay,
Those are full-time.
all right, so, and they'll.
And they're not that big of a salary, so,
But the hidden numbers that aren't here are going to be health insurance costs, all that other
Yeah,
stuff that comes
yeah,
with it.
yeah.
So, okay, so that's, just going to put my 2 cents in on that. So,
Councilor Hanlon.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Mayor, I'm somewhat on the same side as Rosa is. The thing I'm thinking about is that, 2 generations from now, we'll all be speaking English again, unless another people from Iceland start to come in, then we'll have to do something for them. But my main question is, you have 2 people coming in, 2 greeters, and I don't know the language that they're speaking, just let's say A and B. They speak language A and B. What are you going to do with C, D, and E, people that are coming in like that? And that's why what Rosa said, that maybe we should have a volunteer somewhere that, you can also, you only need them for maybe 2 cases a week or something like that, but I think you should look for something like that. We have, 57 languages, I think was spoken at home for our school children, but our school children are all going to learn English, and their children are going to become, bona fide Americans. So we'll all be speaking English, but we have to be, think about, what are you going to do when someone comes in and demands, I don't know if you have Vietnamese, but let's just say it's Vietnamese. You got Spanish and Portuguese. Well, what are you going to do about Vietnamese people, what are you going to do about people from other countries? That's going to be a hard decision you have to make.
This seems to be, in every, lots of different ethnic groups go to different communities, and it seems to be, and I think that the Vietnamese and the Italians and all the other groups have been here for a long time. It seems to be in Everett that a lot of people speaking either French, Haitian Creole, or Spanish or Portuguese. And those are the areas that, and a lot of them own properties and businesses. And a lot of them are paying taxes. And they are unable to get sometimes someone to help them interpret a water bill. Or, they're not actually looking for handouts. These are actually people who are looking to understand what their bill is and why aren't they getting a homeowner exemption when they actually own the property. So it's someone to work with my department heads to help these people assimilate. Kind of like Rosa, I don't believe that we should be giving out all these services. But a lot of these people actually want to become American citizens. They want to become American citizens, and they're not being given the opportunity to become American citizens. As you know, Congress couldn't get their act together. If they were all citizens, they'd be paying taxes, right? So there wouldn't be anyone working on the table because they all have numbers and so forth. I don't want to get into that conversation, but it's somewhat needed. It's been brought to me by the immigrant community. From La Comunidad and other places. And ESL classes down the Conley Center, even at the high school, a max capacity. These people want to learn English. They want to become part of this country. A lot of them do get the feeling that a lot of people here do not want them to become citizens because not allow them to go through the immigration process, right? But I understand your feelings. I'm just trying to, as the mayor, I see a hole, I'm trying to plug the hole with a round peg, you know, a round hole with a round peg. I'm just trying to, get, you know, provide services. You know, our salaries did go up, I guess, 100,000. We are doing a salary study for other departments to make sure that they're compensated for what they're doing. But I know personally what these people in my office do. I see them in the office. I see them going out to making visits to people's houses, out in the streets. They're accessing the email. I mean, today with email, I mean, our employees, they don't have to. We don't have to be physically in the building to be working. You know, a lot of work gets done outside of this building. Being on the streets and stuff with email and getting things done. I mean, it's amazing. And these people, you know, her and myself, I know Richard, I know Maureen, we actually email 24 hours a day, working. I mean, I send emails and messages out 10, 12, 1 in the morning on issues. I mean, all the time, because residents email me all the time. It's great. So, and a lot of my employees are doing that. And like I said, 2 of them have gone full-time. The 2 agreed to new positions. In one of these positions, yeah, okay, that's it, yeah. So, I mean, that's where you see the increases from.
Okay.
Just one last comment on it.
This
I mean, first,
is budget here we're talking about tonight.
Yeah, I just.
You got into this,
No,
real world here, come on.
Well, the only thing I do want to do is I want to make sure that everybody understands that the Spanish, Brazilian, all these other communities are wonderful people. Okay, so I don't want anyone to be misreading where we're going with it. The only thing that I would ask perhaps is if you're going to institute the process, maybe if we can institute it very slowly, see how it works out rather than just funding 2 positions, getting people in there. Let's see how it goes and go from there. And hopefully if folks are able to take advantage of English as a second language, we can eventually phase this out. Maybe this is a temporary thing.
Oh, I see it as a temporary thing.
Yeah.
I mean, eventually,
the
longer they're here, they're going to speak English.
Yeah.
I mean, we unless we have, if this community stays a blue-collar community, and it, you know, like it is, you know, it's low rents, and, well, the rents are getting actually more expensive, but, you know, it's always been an immigrant community. We'll probably have the next wave of immigrants in 20, 30 years from now.
Yeah.
You know, gentrification is going to be coming, right? I don't want to use that word. It's going to happen. Everett's that next city. You know, I mean, we're going to connect to the T stations and all that stuff. I know all of my kids have heard enough already. But let me make something clear. I'm not, you know, a bleeding hot liberal here.
Sure.
I'm just trying to provide some services. Do I agree with them? That's not it's not my personal opinion here. As the mayor running the city, where I have to collect certain monies from certain people, I need people to be able to speak to them.
Yeah.
That's why I'm doing this. I'm not doing this because I love anyone or hate or anything. Because there are also some of these immigrant communities also cause some problems.
Yeah.
You know, there are.
And the tough thing is when you can't communicate, it's even on the most fundamental level. Just being a neighbor, being able to say hello, being able to provide assistance to your neighbors. So it's a fundamental issue that's bigger than the community. It's bigger than our country, apparently.
Right.
But at the end of the day, we need to be able to communicate with each other. Otherwise, we can't coexist. But I appreciate your thoughts on it.
Thank you.
Do you have any more questions for the mayor? And just one thing, the comment made about the keep the other night, I agree with you. We do need someone to speak the language. So I agree with that. The constituency services, I disagree, because I think that everybody who works in every department is there for constituency services, and I still believe we should be open 5 days a week. And that's just my opinion. But do we have anything for the mayor? Yeah, he's excused. Do we have any cut? I don't know if we can cut here. So the motion up there to accept the budget?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Councilor Napolitano.
Okay, first of all, as far as constituent services, I mean, I agree the need for the people down there. You know, communication's important. But I don't see that there's any reason why those people down there still can't report to the mayor's office. I would like to motion to cut the salary for the director and the greeter position, using the
You have to go
full-time
right to
constituent
the,
aides.
I believe you'd have to go right to the salary, bottom line salary.
Bottom line salary, so look, all right, so look to cut $46,827.
I just want to, you know, that's, you know, not to use names, but that's what Steve Sapino in the office does, and I think you all know what he does here in the city. So I just want to let you know who that person is. And that was also, just to let you know also, that was also part of the Collins Center. They suggested to have this, so UMass Collins Center suggested that this consistent services, and they're seeing this, not only just in Everett, but it's happened to all the urban communities around here. If you look at Medford, Malden, Somerville, they all have these departments. You know, and so just.
Well, in that case, let me amend that to not 46,827. I'd rather that be 58,000 for the greeter, so you have a director, and then you have the constituent service aides who are actually doing the work.
Well, this director does a tremendous amount of work. If you just recently, this past weekend, he had all the kids from the high school on his, you want to call it on our days off, Saturday, Sunday, cleaning parks as part of their punishment for whatever they call it, detention. You know, he also did the home program cleaning the seniors' houses last year. He also has the ROCA program that just cleaned the Meadows Park. That's Steve Supino. The guy goes above and beyond. If I could have gave him more money, I would have.
We're not cutting positions.
The greeters, you want
Just
to,
cutting the
I don't
greeters.
think you can cut them, but you can make a motion. I don't cut your budget, so, I don't know if you want to start getting into that.
What's the motion would be for us?
Motion to cut 58,000
Quick
in
question.
the salary line?
No, the motion's out there. Quick question, what's the
Yeah.
question? Counselor Capone?
Do we have the legal authority to cut the mayor's budget? That's my question.
I don't know, you can make it and send it out for a legal,
Did we do this last year?
if you want to cut it, you can send it out for a legal,
We have an opinion from last year from the, I believe, the Attorney General, from the city solicitor. That's who you're.
What was that?
The opinion was that, yeah.
But what is it?
Documentation, what's your mic on?
What was the net result?
The net result is there were two distinct legislative bodies. You got the executive and you got the legislative. We can't be cutting his budget, we can't be cutting our budget. Operating budget. Operating. So the distinction is operating budget.
Okay, so
Is that-
what portion of that, what we have in front of us, is the operating budget?
None of it. That's the question. Is this the operating the budget? Is this,
Well, the budget that he's presenting is
his operating
technically
budget.
his operating budget.
If
Those positions crucial to the operation of the budget, I'm not in that position.
Yeah, I mean, if this is the
Can't-
operating
we're not
budget.
looking to do something we can't do.
Exactly, we're just wasting time if we can't. I mean, if you wanted to
I'll
get
withdraw
an
my
opinion
motion.
from the legal department as to what constitutes an operating portion of the budget, that's one thing, but
Is
if this turns out to be the operating budget and we can't touch it, why are we debating it?
Right.
But I mean, that's just,
Perhaps we can get that, we can get a legal answer on Monday at our regular meeting. I'll withdraw my motion.
okay.
Well, you'd have to make the cuts now and then get the.
Can I just
We'll
offer,
only do the final.
can I offer some,
Yes,
an
Bill.
opinion? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I understand how you feel about it, and I can understand that. I would, and I know Council Simonelli is in my office a lot, but if any of you wanted to just be there and see what goes on, I think you'd see that it's a very busy office. But if it's the $58,000, you just want to, if it's more the money, I could find somewhere in the budget just to cut $58,000 from the budget somewhere to make you happy, but, and I'm not trying to be facetious, I'm really not. I understand your feelings, that you may not think it's appropriate. I don't know, maybe you have a vote here, if you want to take a vote on it or not, or I just understand the feelings. It seems like we've gone through this a couple of years ago, and we found out that you couldn't do it, and I just think, maybe we're wasting our time.
Well, we just get a motion out there to have the legal deliver
Yeah,
something to us
sure.
Monday.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'll
that'll
make the
everything
motion to
easy.
that extent, that if we could invite the city solicitor to come before us on Monday evening
Yep.
before we vote, just to address this issue and see what we can and cannot do.
And I'll
that way we'll
second
go from
that.
That's fine.
Yeah, if I could, Mr. Mayor, I'm.
The
I'm
motion's
not-
made to have the city, excuse me, guys,
I
let me
know.
just get this part of it over, we're beating the hell out of this. A motion made to have the city solicitor come before us Monday night to find out what's legal and what's not legal on the cuts that Council Napolitano wants to make. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Let's read the next department, license.
Excuse me, customary thanks?
Yeah, they're all have to stay there anyhow.
Oh, okay, oh,
Right now, we'll be in section 16, 14, licensing, page 14, the License Commission. Do you have any questions? 14, yes. 16, page 14, yes. Section 16, page 14. But everything's in the same section. Do we have any question for the mayor, Ms. Gay, anybody at this time?
Make a motion to pass the budget. Page 14 we're talking about.
Motion made second to pass this part of the budget. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next one would be to page 15. Flip it over one. Is the Conservation Commission. Do you have any questions? Council Simonelli?
Thank you, Mr. I'm sorry, 28,000, right? That's the total of,
29.7.
does that concern also the recycling also? That's total compensation,
Just
recycling, everything?
No, just his salary. Not the program, not the barrel, not the barrels and.
That's just his salary, what he gets,
Well, yeah, his salary and the board members.
and the board makers small money.
Board members, yes.
But I just want, in this gentleman's behalf, I'd just like to say that the man does a lot of work for both ends, the conversation, conversational, what's it called?
Well, he's
Conservation.
he's retired and he can only work 16 hours a week.
But it seems like he does immense jobs everywhere. He's doing the recycling and he's doing a conversation job. Anyway, I can't say it. But I just think the man's been there, hasn't had a raise in many years, and he's always doing work at home. And I just think that, I really think that, you know, we should have considered giving him a little, you know, a reasonable raise here. And to me, it's really kind of a shame that you didn't offer him a raise.
He is getting a raise. He's getting a 2% raise like the rest of the staff, so.
2%, I mean, he deserves more than that. I mean, he deserves a
Don't we all?
good-sized raise compared to other cities. I bet you other cities, people getting, the directors getting more than 28,000.
I just don't want anyone in the audience to think that he's not getting a raise because he's getting a 2% raise.
Yeah, that's 2%.
But that's the raise, 2% across the
I mean, he
board.
hasn't gotten a raise in years.
He's getting one this year.
2%. Oh, but I think it's kind of really disrespectful for the man with all the work he does at home.
You know what, we will,
But I just want to just.
I will look into
The man
that.
works hard and he doesn't get the respect
We
he
agree.
deserves.
No, he gets the, I agree that he works hard.
Council McKinnon? Well said. Do we have any more questions regarding this
Motion to pass the budget.
before us? Motion made to pass budget. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Go to page 16 in the same section, flip the page. We have the planning board. Do we have any questions regarding anything in the planning board?
15. Oh, 16, I'm sorry, 16.
Any questions? Seeing none?
What about on the
Favorable
other
action
one?
on this portion of the budget?
Motion made, favorable action, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Page 17, Board of Appeals, flip it over once.
Favorable action on this portion of the budget?
Motion made, second for favorable action, all in favor? Opposed? Okay. Disability Commission, be page 38. Same section. 38.
38.
Do we have any questions out there?
Favorable action on this portion of the budget?
Motion made second with favorable action, all in favor?
Aye.
I oppose. Thank you very much, Mayor, tonight, thank you. Next up, the fire department. Oh, where's Hickey? Oh, Joe, you're here. What happened, what did we go back to yesterday? We did the police yesterday, right? Today we have the fire department. Yep. Section 16, page 20, we'll do page 20 first. Hi, Chief Butler. We'll start with page 20. There are 2 unfilled positions and 0 amount being turned back. Okay, Council McKinnon.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the chief. Chief, are you going to actually fill these positions? Are they currently going through an academy or anything like that right now?
These positions just became vacated.
Okay. They were just retired out? Okay.
People retired very recently.
Yeah.
We have been
And what time frame?
we're just waiting to, take a look at the list and see when we can get them into the academy.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Any more questions on page 20? Council Capone.
Thank you. Through you to the chief. Chief, the budget's gone up by about 300,000. I know that's probably representative, and among other things, more firemen on the job. How many did we add to the department over the past year? Do you know?
We haven't added any additional positions within this budget. We added 8 personnel, new personnel, but they're being paid for through a federal grant.
Okay.
So they had no impact on this
Okay.
budget.
So we have 8 new, and then there's 2 positions that
2
came available.
positions from retirees.
Okay. Great. Thank you. No other questions?
Do we have any more questions on page 20? If not, go over to page 21. Council Rosa. Councilor Florio, excuse me.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. Chief, I see on the fire apparatus repair technician, his pay has gone up over $10,000.
21.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm on page 20, sorry.
Yes, Councilor Napolitano.
Thank you. Through you to the chief. Departmental vehicles, the 101,000, what is that, how's that broken down?
I think that's a mistake.
Are we replacing any of the large equipment?
We're replacing two pumpers this fiscal year. I don't think that belonged in my budget.
20, page 21.
21?
It's a council worksheet.
I'll take it.
Well, wait, 2
That's capital
pumpers are actually
improvement.
more than
Page
that,
21
aren't
is
they?
capital improvement.
Fire
Or
department.
is this part of the capital?
Fire department.
Okay,
Capital
it
improvements?
is. I get confused.
It's all right.
But is that what's going on, you're replacing?
Two vehicles, I'm sorry. If I may, there, as part of the CIP, we proposed in the fire department, there'd be 2 vehicles funded through the operating budget, 1 command vehicle and 1 mechanic's utility vehicle. Command vehicle, $45,000, mechanic utility vehicle, $56,000. So just to remind you, when we submitted the CIP, we contemplated different funding sources, bonding, free cash, and just direct appropriation. These particular items were recommended for direct appropriation, and that's why you see them in there at the 101,000.
I'm
Sorry.
not used to seeing capital in my regular budget, that's right.
We're trying to bring a new, we're trying to format how we contemplate capital, and in instances where I think it could be funded in the operating budget, we like to do so.
Are you anticipating replacing one of the pumpers this year? This coming
We're
year?
replacing 2 pumpers now, they're actually in production right now. One was scheduled for this fiscal year we're in, one was scheduled for this coming fiscal year, but due to breakdowns, we ended up purchasing both at the same time. So there's 2 in production now, we should have them probably late summer.
I know a few years ago, we were tracking how, the status of Does that still leave you with a ladder that needs to be replaced down the road?
We actually have a replacement, long-term replacement plan within the next 5 years of pretty much replacing everything.
All right, thank you.
Do we have any more questions? Counselor Hanlon?
Just one, Chief, you keep saying this fiscal year, and do you mean 2014 or 2015?
We had one in the 2014 budget and one in
Okay.
2015. We ended up doing them both in 2014.
14.
So we won't be purchasing another one this fiscal year.
So you don't need any equipment in this year?
There was two bond orders authorized by the council for pumper trucks. First one was actually part of the fiscal year 14 CIP, and then after an inspection, the chief informed me that he in fact should have ordered two instead of one, so we brought forward another bond order that was approved, so we have two identical pumper trucks in production as part of fiscal year 14.
Okay, let me just jump then to page 21. What was that, departmental vehicles, and what was that for?
One of them is replacing 13-year-old command vehicle, and the other one is replacing the mechanic's vehicle, which is, I think, 18 years old.
Okay.
Counselor McKinnon?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the chief. So, are we anticipating maybe coming back to look for a ladder truck at some point in 2015, or no?
That's, I believe, in the 2016
That would be-
plan.
Yeah, if you look at the 5-year plan, you'll see a ladder truck in there. I don't have the complete package in front of me, but we have it earmarked, I think, for 17 or 18.
Yeah, and we had a ladder truck, a rescue, and then a ladder truck.
We try to forecast out 5 years what we need, and then kind of, we shift it around. It's a fluid document, but we have one queued up for a ladder truck.
Okay, thank you very much.
Do we have any more questions on page 21? If not, go to section 18, page 20. Do you have any questions? Counselor Florio?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, Chief, in regards to the fire apparatus repair technician, there's a jump in pay of over $10,000. Now, is this person union, does that mean he's union, uncollected, UNCL, union, what does that mean, W?
He is union, but we increased his hours. He went from a 35-hour-a-week employee to a 40-hour-a-week employee, and that was a big part of that increase. That was last year.
Oh, yeah, 63. So he's gonna be working 5 hours more a week,
Yes.
okay?
Do you have any more questions on this page here? Do you see,
Chairman,
Counselor Hanlon?
Just one question.
That's a contractual item, which pays for education, for hours of education that the firefighters do above and beyond the regular training that we give them. So if they take an academy course, they can put those hours in. They have to attain a certain number of hours, and based on their years of service, they receive a stipend for doing this. For all types of training, not necessarily school, but, no. No. It's their choice.
Counselor McKinnon?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the chief. All these right here, with the exception of what, overtime, are contractual?
Pretty much everything in the personnel is contractual.
Okay. And that would be under bargaining agreement anyway, correct? Okay. The only thing that is not is the overtime. Is that a sufficient budgeting item there for you?
With the 8 personnel, the 8 new personnel that are under the grant.
You see it coming down?
It should. I mean, the overtime's been running high because we had a lot of injuries, but we also had to put these firefighters through the academy, so they weren't available to us for a good part of the year. So I'm hoping that the $350,000 will be sufficient for next year.
Thank you.
Counselor Hanlon, I believe.
Thank you, John. Chief, it looks like the defibrillation stipend and the EMT stipend. Can you explain those two to me?
Those are contractual. They receive a stipend for being certified in cardiac defibrillation. They receive training over the course of the year in that. And the EMT is also contractual. They receive a stipend if they're certified Massachusetts EMT.
Okay, not for going out on call.
No,
Okay.
that's a stipend to cover
Okay.
the EMT certification, which is costly to them.
Got it, okay.
Any more questions? Chief, just two quick ones. What do you pay on disability a year? Do you have a lot of guys out?
It varies. We had, this year here, there were quite a few people out on long-term disability. It
Disabilities.
varies year to year. This was a tough year.
And Chief, how many EMT, how many emergency calls does the city get a year? Would you say a couple thousand, 3,000?
How many
4,000?
total calls
Yeah,
are we
because everything
doing?
comes to you every time there's an
We're
emergency.
doing over 5,000 a year.
5,000 a year? And I'm going to ask this question, I want to start a thing. We did that in-house, what would that mean for funds for the city of Everett?
I'm sorry?
If we ever did that in-house, our own ambulance service, what would it cost, what would the money would the city of Everett make on that?
It's hard to say. We'd have, you'd have to have a study done.
Do you get money from, would you get the money for the insurance also?
You would, and that's the thing that drives it, is what your
Yeah.
collection rate would be anticipated to be.
Because the initial startup money would be the biggest part of it.
Yeah.
Okay, Thank you very
It
much.
would be expensive.
Any questions? Seeing none?
Motion to pass the budget.
Motion to pass the budget, second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, Chief, for your time.
Thank you.
Mike Matarazzo, our city clerk.
1612, I think. What else are they? 1612 and 1811.
Mr. Matarazzo has no unfunded positions, he's returning 10,000. Because he transferred his pay raise to us. Counselor Capone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mike's always been a very generous guy, so that doesn't surprise me. We're all pretty familiar with what happens with the clerk's office. You do a lot down there. A lot of different things that touch almost every aspect of everyone's life in the city. The only question I have for you is the overtime line. It looks like it's pretty nominal anyway, but what would be an example of overtime that might happen in your office? If you can think of one.
Well, not yet, but in 2016, of course, the early voting would cause us some overtime. There are other things that we do, especially during election time, that could precipitate somebody having to work overtime. We don't use it a lot, but we figured it was best to have it there in case we needed it.
It's a nominal number you're looking for, too.
Yeah,
It's not
and
like you're coming in looking for 20,000 in overtime.
We've been doing a lot. After a while, people get tired of comp time, because, I mean, the staff's really good if I ask them if they would stay.
Yeah.
And that they're really good at staying when I ask them to, and they usually just take comp time. But, every once in a while, an employee wants, cash instead of time, and...
It's funny how that happens.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, a few of them have asked for it so far.
Okay.
Yeah, as you can tell, we don't spend a lot of it, but
Yeah,
we like to have at least, what is it, 800 we have there?
I think you have 6, yeah.
Yeah, 600, yeah.
That's a nominal figure, and...
Yeah,
and
just in case.
You're not using it, so that's fine.
Yeah,
But,
just in case.
No, you do a great job down there. It's a great staff, so thank you, and that's all I have for questions.
We have any more questions for Mr. Matarazzo? We have page 12. Mr. Hanlon, Counselor Hanlon, excuse me.
Mr. Okay. Through you, Mr. Chairman, Michael, is there, Mr. Kulik, is there anything in this budget that reflects any of the new laws that the election division state of Massachusetts passed?
No, not yet, because a lot of those don't come in until 2016. The early voting and things like that. Most of it comes in 2016. The pre-registration will be under the registrars of voters, where 16 and 17-year-olds are allowed to register ahead of time. But no, nothing in there now that has caused a bump up or anything in the election
Well,
budget.
the early registration, that's also going to be in 2016?
No, I believe that's going to start earlier than that.
Okay,
I
but
believe
we're
that's-
covered for that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll be under the registrars, but that shouldn't be any additional expense, though. It's simply a case of coding it and putting it into the VRIS.
Okay.
No questions? Would you like to go to section 18, page 11? Do you have any questions, Mr.
Mr. Chairman, I have
Marazzo?
one
Counselor
question.
Hanlon?
I see that the, never mind, no, clerk of the city council is gone.
Yeah, it's under the city council budget now.
I know, but am I on the right page?
Yeah, it's just, it's not in the city clerk's line item now, it's in the city council's line item.
Oh, it's in now, okay,
Yeah, they just put it there.
got it. Thank you.
Do we have any questions, Mr. Marazzo? Seeing none, excuse,
Pass that
thank
portion of
you.
the budget?
Right.
Motion made, second, to pass the
Oh, we do
budget.
have two items that are being added, right? That were inadvertently left out. It's a shelving and a safe ladder for the archives and the archive boxes. I think it's a total of,
$7,000.
yeah, about $6,000.
Just, as you know, you can't add money to the budget once it's submitted, so what I plan on doing is, as I close out the fiscal year end, if I can identify funds to pay for those
Okay.
items, we're gonna try to take care
We
of
had
that as a
submitted it,
matter.
and it just didn't make
But
it
it's
into
just-
the budget.
Just
book.
an oversight, but I'm hoping that we're able to take care of that with fiscal year 14
Okay,
monies.
good,
and-
that's fine with
and
me.
get rid of that issue.
Yeah, right now, there's a ladder down there, but it's up against the shelves, and when you get a box off the top, you gotta carry that box down the ladder, and it's not very safe. We're trying to get a better ladder and increase shelving down there. We're starting to get really full, and we put a lot of effort into that, and I hate to see it go to waste. Everything's on a database now, where you can find documents quickly, legal can find documents when they need them. So a lot of effort's been put in there, and just want to make sure we can use it for a few more years to come, until eventually we'll have to deal with it if there's ever a new city hall.
Well, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Excuse me, thanks. Next is voter registration. Mr. Piero. She has no funded position. She amount turned back was very minimal. We will be on section 16, page 13. Any questions you have addressed to Mr. Piero? That's page 12 in section 16. Seeing none?
Mr. Chairman?
No. Councilor Hanlon?
On page 12, through you to the registrar, I see the boards of registrar, we have 4 of them.
Yes,
And is Michael in that, is the clerk in there? He's
Yes.
one of these 4?
yes,
Is he the chairman?
no,
He's not the chairman. Do they meet regularly?
once a month.
Once a month?
Mhm.
Okay.
Any more questions on 16, page 13? If not, let's go to 18, number 12, page 12. Do we have any questions on the salary page here? Mr. Piero? Excuse us, customary thank you, Mr. Piero, coming here for this terrible grilling tonight. Motion made to accept the budget. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Next up, we have information technology, Mr. Guerrero. Let's go to page 16.
1611.
Section 16, page 11. Mr. Guerrero, it's good to see you. We know you're hidden in the depths of the bowels of Everett City Hall.
Yes.
We'll be talking 16, page 11. Do we have any questions for Mr. Guerrero? Counselor McKinnon?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Guerrero. Digitized file, it's down to zeros. What's going on with that?
That is being transferred to a,
Take a year off. We're actually decided to take a year off from the project. So originally it was in IT's budget, and we did ISD. ISD has been completed, or is almost completed. Next, we're planning on going to engineering, but we decided to take a year off, not budget it this year, and then start again next year. It's kind of a extensive process.
Is it a grant thing, or is it?
It's not. We're basically taking all of our hard files and putting them online into a database. It was good to start with ISD first, because what will happen is that basically the building department's files will be accessible to the public, and they can search on them. But it's a very overwhelming process. All of our documents have to actually leave. They have to be copied, scanned in. We have to watch them all happen. It's a really big project, so we decided to take a year off, let ISD get finished up, and then go to the next year for the next project.
Thank you very much.
Counselor Capone?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The line items for telephone communications, wireless communications, data communications, and hardware, software, could you explain those?
sure. So telephone communications covers all of our city phones, Verizon phones, and our Earthlink.
That's all the phones throughout the city?
Throughout the city, yes. Wireless communications covers everything from cell phones and mobile iPads. We have a lot of ISD users using iPads when they're on the job site. Data communications, that covers our backbone, our internet. So we pay Comcast, Tower Stream, and Earthlink. And that's to cover data in between each city building.
And then the hardware, software equipment? What was-
Hardware, software equipment, that is, yeah, it's just for new computers, printers, any sort of hardware supply that we need to replace if something happens throughout the year, or
Now, and is that specific to your department, or is that throughout as well?
throughout the entire city.
That's the entire city?
Correct.
Okay.
If I may, Counselor, if you just noticed that some of these lines didn't exist last year, what we're trying to do is we're trying to organize the departments and have IT handle all the IT needs. So some of these historically have been in different departments.
Yeah,
We're trying to consolidate them to the proper oversight.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Do you have any more questions for Mr. Guerrero? Seeing none, why don't we go to section 18, page 10.
Okay. Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
is the GIS, excuse me, GIS coordinator no longer needed?
She is being transferred into the Planning and Development Department,
Into where?
in Planning and Development,
Uh,
or Community
Yeah,
Development.
that position sits in the planning department. They have the room, they have the plotter up there, so we're trying to move the people to where they're situated. And GIS, although it covers IT, planning, engineering, right now, with all the stuff going on in the city, we figure it's a good location in the planning department.
What about equipment for him? Is there any equipment in your office that has to go to the new office?
No,
He'll get new equipment, or is it already there?
it's already there. Nothing has to be moved.
It's already there in the
Correct.
planning department?
Planning, when you see the planning department budget, you'll see a line for equipment for that particular GIS person.
Oh, so, okay.
Do you have any questions? Seeing none? Mr. Guerrero, thank you for your time tonight.
Move
Good
to approve
luck.
the budget as presented in that
Okay.
section.
Motion made, second, to approve the budget. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Trustee, thanks, thank you. Mr. Hickey, if he's here. Oh, boy. Don't come up, there's nothing left there. You look like you...
37, 31, 31, the next section.
Page 37 in section 13, section 16, excuse me. 1637. Ms. Hickey has no funded unfilled positions, and we also have, he's returning $78,000 back to the coffers. Great management fees.
Thank you.
I'm sure that's your salary you donated back. I know the type of guy you are.
I do that every year.
Yeah.
Councilman.
Wonderful, man.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions for Mr. Hickey? Counselor Capone.
Thank you. Through you to Mr. Hickey. I noticed the part-time salary line's new. Is that Jerry coming?
That's Jerry coming in part-time
Is she-
after the
yeah.
first of the year.
Because she's retiring, I guess, from...
That's correct.
But she does a great job, and she's staying on with the department, so. Okay. No other questions. Thank you.
Do you have any more questions regarding page 37? If not, go to section 18, page 31. Do you have any questions for Mr. Hickey? Seeing none?
Will we be excused with the customary thanks? Favorable action on the budget.
Second.
Motion made second for the budget. All in favor? All right?
Thank you.
Welcome. Go back to work back there.
35 next.
Be sure he gets charged. We have Mr. Erickson, Planning and Development.
1635? Oh, I'm in the wrong neighborhood.
That'll be on section 16, page 35. Good evening, Mr. Erickson.
Good evening.
Do we have any questions, Mr. Erickson? Councilor Capone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Mr. Erickson. I'm noticing on the salaries line, the budget for last year was $203,000, and you're requesting $339,000 in salaries this year. So I'm assuming there are some new positions. I think we heard one is
Correct.
transferring over.
Correct, yes.
And well, we can see that on the next page. What else is going on in the office?
Certainly. So one is transferring over. The GIS coordinator position is transferring from IT to planning and development. Part of the reason for that is that person, she's physically located in planning, and all of her equipment's there. So from a staffing, operational oversight perspective, it makes sense for her to be, for me to be signing her timesheets and operationally. Plus, she's very interdisciplinary, or that role is very interdisciplinary, meaning it crosses many spectrums of planning, development, but also working with IT, ISD, city services. So given the nature of the work that comes out of planning, whereby we do a lot of interdisciplinary work as well, it does, in some respects, make sense for it to be located in planning. It's how many other communities have done that in the past. We're also looking at creating a new transportation engineer or transportation planner position, and that's portion of the reason for the additional increase in that salary.
Could you
line item.
explain what that person would do?
Sure. So one thing that we have noticed through many years is that our transportation systems here in the city are either lacking when it comes to public transit and working with Mass DOT or MBTA to add additional capacity to our existing public transit or increase access to fixed rail transit, but also go after and secure grant funding that could lead to larger capital projects, utilize the funding that we do get in a more efficient manner, also review projects, public and private projects that come through the process to make sure that they are truly benefiting the people of Everett. And so this position is geared, will be geared towards doing just that, making sure that when we are looking at transit, and it's not just transit, but it's also transportation when it comes to roads, efficient use of our physical stoplights, for example. A lot of people complain about traffic on Route 99 because the stoplights aren't synced. This person can actually be dedicated on just addressing some of those questions and answers. There's also a lot of question about pedestrian and multimodal. Multimodal is basically how to get pedestrians, bikes, people who go to bus stops, seniors, the elderly or veterans who might be, or handicapped citizens moving through and around the city. This person can certainly focus time and attention on making sure that we are accommodating all of the Everett citizens and designing our sidewalks and streetscapes. And when we redo a street, for example, we're accommodating all users.
In under professional, well, one line below the GIS expenses, the 10,000.
Yes.
That just goes hand in hand with the person who's coming into your department.
Correct. So they need to
expenses
pay
will
for
come out.
software and supplies and things like that.
In professional services, you've got budgeted for 140,000, Last year was budgeted at 10,000. Looks like you've expended a little under 10,000. So if you could explain why 140 is necessary this year?
Certainly. Last year, the city secured O'Neill and Associates to assist with some of the work that we're doing at the state and federal level to, again, go after a lot of these federal and state grants. They've done, a good job at helping us break down some of the conversations with agencies such as Mass DOT, US EPA, US EDA, those agencies that do have a lot of grant funding, but it's sometimes challenging for a smaller city like Everett to get any traction with those funders. And so they've helped us to break down some of those barriers because they have good, strong relationships with people in those firms. This is really a line item to keep them on retainers throughout another year of their work with us. And it would be a contract with them
Okay, so
for the following
it would
year.
just be as needed, used as needed with them?
No, essentially, we have them on contract for a year, or we would,
Is there
the
a
theory-
flat fee to keep them on contract?
Correct.
And how much is that, do you know?
75, I think, $7,500 per month. I'm not sure.
Okay, so it's $7,500 per month just to keep them on contract. Obviously, to help get our foot in the door with grants and whatnot. Is there any overlap with this new person coming in that we're looking to get, the traffic planner, engineer individual?
There would be certainly working hand in hand for sure. So the transportation engineer would be trying to work with those same agencies that O'Neill and Associates has helped us get in the door with. But now that we're getting some traction through O'Neill with these agencies, there's a lot of work that we need to do on our end to advance the conversation, so to speak. Work on advancing designs of new roadways, or if we're going, one vision that the mayor certainly has that I think is shared is trying to either get a commuter rail stop or maybe a Silver Line extension into the city. That takes a lot of manpower to have the conversations, advanced design conversations with Mass DOT and the MBTA, and then also secure state and federal dollars to actually fund a large-scale capital project like that. So having O'Neill on board helps get our foot in the door with a lot of these agencies. Having a transportation engineer on board helps us advance the conversation in a more technical manner.
Okay. And obviously, I understand why you need to have them around. Just the mere contractual part of it's $84,000. If they actually, is it all inclusive for that $7,000 per month? Or is it $7,000
Typically,
for
yes.
base?
No, it's
and then you pay for additional for time?
No, it's all inclusive.
Okay, so that's the time. You use them or not, that's what you pay, just to have them on
Correct. I
retainer?
mean, I have weekly conversations with them. I have a weekly standing phone call. There was one this morning. I unfortunately had to postpone it, but we always make it up. We actually have it scheduled for tomorrow.
I actually spoke with them today.
Okay.
They speak with typically either me, Jamie, or Dave Rodriguez weekly on different projects.
And sometimes even beyond that, we exchange emails on a regular basis.
And would the intention be, with the addition of this traffic engineer planner, scaling back on the need for professional services, or is there always going to be a need to have some organization involved?
Hopefully, long-term, when we build the relationships, we can scale back on that. Again, a city like Everett in a metropolitan area like Boston is the smaller fish in a bigger sea. So really getting those relationships built is a good portion of the time that we do spend, that we have been spending with those agencies. And once we have those relationships, it certainly can be built upon and hopefully scale back some of the need for that type of service.
And so that, the relationship that we have with O'Neill Associates is more of a consulting and a getting in the door type of relationship as opposed to heavy lifting, whatever we need to do on our end?
It's a combination, but typically it's the consulting and getting the foot in the door. There is some heavy lifting, but a lot of times because we are the ones working in this community and we know what the priorities are, we tend to feed them the information that we want to advance, and they work with the information that we provide them. They do provide guidance, making sure that we're strategically providing them with the right information or providing the various agencies with the right information to make sure that the conversation really advances the goals of the community. So they do have that strategy behind them, and the years of experience in working with certain either people or agencies or processes.
Okay.
This actually was bid last year, so they were the successful bidder at the bid process.
All right. I have no further questions on this page.
Council McKinnon?
For you, Madam Chairman, to Mr. Erickson. These people that you're describing, they get us in the door, they make, do they actually do the grant work?
Like writing of the grants?
Yes.
Typically, no.
Okay.
They have helped us review our grants before we submit them. And they certainly provide guidance when we are going after grants as to how should we strategically write a grant. But a lot of that grant writing has happened within my own staff.
So it would be state and federal grants that they're going after?
That they're helping us go after, yes.
Okay.
And anytime we find grants outside, I mean, they've been feeding us a lot of information about grants, and it's not just for planning and development. They've been feeding us grants for the school department, for the police department, for fire. So it's interdisciplinary, the type of services that they do help us with, and that's why it's important for, you know, Melissa and Dave to also talk to them, because it feeds not just planning. It's just on from a weekly to weekly basis. The conversations tend to be more about the types of grants that deal with infrastructure, which tends to more fall under planning and development.
So this is a vital part, this is a vital group to the city right now?
Yeah, it's been pretty worthwhile having them in the door. It's helped us. It also
they're
helps
worth their bang for the buck?
Yeah, most recently, they've actually helped us get quite a few dollars earmarked in, or actually brought onto quite a few of the state bond bills. Transportation bond bill, they helped us get I think it's $4 million ask for Beecham Street reconstruction. Now they're going to help us actually go after, you know, the transportation bond is well overfunded for what they actually do fund, but having them will help us advance the conversation, actually get that money freed up.
And typically, we wouldn't have that latitude with the state at that point, or?
It's more challenging for us to have that conversation without them. They are skilled at maneuvering that process much more so than I might be, and having somebody physically in the State House, which they
Yes.
provide, is always a help. I can't spend my time doing that. I have too much going on here. So.
Exactly. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Counselor Hanlon, did you have a question?
Thank you. I'm looking at on page 30, the 5 positions at the bottom of the page, and the salaries that they're making. I know that gets included with the salaries up in the top.
Are we on the second page now?
On page 30.
Sorry. Yes. Okay.
Okay, I was just waiting to get there.
I don't believe we're on
Yeah,
that
do we?
page
I'm
yet.
sorry. Okay, never mind. I'll get to it in a minute.
1635, I'm sorry. That's
It's
okay.
okay.
Any other questions on page 1635? If not, we'll move on to page 18-30.
30.
1830. Counselor Hanlon?
Okay. Back again, sorry I jumped ahead. And maybe the question, Mr. Viskey, maybe you can answer it too. But I'm kind of curious about the money, and I'm just going to pick, like, the deputy director. He's making $14,498 from the city and $57,990 from CDBG. My question is, their taxes, health, let me say health insurance, does a portion of it come out of the CDBG money and a portion from the city?
Yes. So I don't mean to cut in.
No, that's fine. Any fraction of a position that's paid from a grant, we have started to grab the indirect cost with regard to that position. So in your example, deputy director, 80% of the salary is paid from the grant, 80% of the benefits would be paid from the grant. And that's consistent throughout the general fund. What I'm trying to implement here and talking to the departments, talk to the administration, is that anytime we have a grant-funded employee, we want to pay for not just their salary, but their fringe benefits, so we cover their total
So
compensation.
it covers everybody, all the granting things. Okay, that's good.
That's
Thank you.
correct.
Councilor Capone?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. You may have been discussing this when I was making sure that you saw my hand. CDBG, did you explain what that was?
That's,
Or is a portion
I'm
of it-
sorry, it's the Community Development Block Grant, which is, Jamie can speak more of it, but it's grant dollars we get from state and federal government for planning-type purposes, and
Okay,
I
so
won't pretend I know what
these
it is.
numbers that are here, these are not costs to the taxpayer? Or is this just a portion that's not covered?
They're through federal.
Okay, so
Yeah,
there's no...
it's federal grant dollars, so part of the grant dollars that come in are earmarked for projects, but part of it's earmarked for administration, so to the extent that we have dollars for administration, we offset salaries using those funds.
Okay. And Now we'll get to the salary of the traffic engineer planner that we were talking about on the prior page. And it looks like it's listed at just under $68,000. I heard some of the things that you would be utilizing this person for. Obviously, I know you can't go up to the State House every day. You do have your hands full. In terms of trying to obtain grants, is that exclusively going to be the domain of this traffic engineer person, or is that something everyone's involved with?
No, we actually work as a very good team at obtaining grants and going after grants. One example is our senior planner, with assistance from me, and actually many of the staff members on our staff just applied today, submitted an application for a park grant. You voted on it, I think, at a previous meeting to apply for $400,000 to go towards Sacramone Park. We work on that as a team. Usually there's a grant lead. In that case, it was our senior planner. We've also applied for EPA Brownfields grants, which our environmental and sustainability planner has applied for, and other stormwater grants. We work closely with ISD and other departments to apply for grants as well out of the department. So it really depends on the specialty of the person, of the grant compared to the person that we have on staff, determines really who takes the lead, and also staff time. I don't want to overwork too much of my staff.
And I know how hard you work. I know that you are everywhere all the time, meetings, evenings, whatever. You do work very hard. You do a good job. So I don't want you to take this the wrong way. Is there any way for the function that you're looking for with the traffic engineer planner to be absorbed in the other positions? And the only reason why I say that, we all want as many services as we can get.
Right.
There's only so many dollars to go around. And we really need to make some really difficult decisions on where we can cut and where we can try to save the taxpayers some money.
Right.
So is there any way to absorb even a portion of it? So maybe it's not a full-time job, maybe it's a part-time job, and some of those, some of the burdens that would go, or some of the obligations and duties that would go with that position could maybe be shouldered a little bit by some of the other positions?
A lot of that is what we're already doing right now. We are shouldering a lot of those positions, those burdens right now within the staff, and even before having a senior planner on board, we were even shouldering even more. I'd like to say, like you said, we can provide everything to everybody. I think what we're trying to do here is we saw a need. We see a lot of potential improvements that we can do as a community when it comes to transportation and traffic. And the demand for doing or obtaining funding to complete those projects, or even designing those projects, is quite large. And I've been able to keep my head above water with some of this work, but I certainly haven't been able to focus on it as much as I would certainly like, and I think what the city deserves. So can it be absorbed? Likely, but I don't know if we'll be able to obtain the funding that I really think the city deserves, or be able to advance the goals from a transportation perspective that the city, again, deserves, and what the mayor has certainly spelled out as his vision. Another big potential, good reason for this is coming down the pipeline with the potential vote at the end of the summer, is wind development. If that were to get the license, and I'm not saying that they aren't, or what have you.
We don't know. Sure.
There's a potential for about $40 to $50 million worth of traffic improvements happening on Everett streets that need to be fully designed. We have schematic designs, but fully designed, completed, and actually executed in the field. And that this person could be dedicated just solely on that project, and that alone is a multi-person job, let alone one person.
Sure.
But this person could
Sure.
certainly be.
And with regard to that, none of us know what's going to happen. We're all hoping for the best. And if it were to happen, a lot of the woes that we're talking about tonight become a thing of the past. But I know that the administration is approaching it the same way we are. We can't assume
Correct.
that anything's going to happen. We still need to run a city. We still need to provide services. And, everyone's going to try to do the best they can. That said, is this something we could kind of put a pin in for now? And then if it does look like a favorable vote comes on, we could always come in and ask for an additional position.
I'm not sure about how that process works, whether you can add the position.
I'll go back to my original statement, is the budget as proposed by the administration is the budget we would like to see the council vote on affirmatively. We think that this is a progressive budget, and with this position would certainly help with the mayor's vision and to bring us to first-class city like we're asking for. So if you're suggesting if you want me to suggest that you might want to cut this, I'd say no. I mean, we put it in there because we believe it belongs there. Jamie can certainly speak more to the merits of what this position would do, but anything that we bring before you, in my opinion, we're looking to have funded as submitted, so.
Sure. And obviously from your comments, I mean, there would be value added. I think everything that we've seen, for the most part, with very few exceptions, there was value added. There was going to be, not only in your department, all the departments, there was going to be an initial expense, but we were going to see the rewards back on the other end. And we could take that all on a step-by-step basis. We need to pick somewhere. And I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking that, and again, with my initial comments, I know how hard you work. I see you everywhere. But an additional engineer, planner, where we have O'Neill Associates, where we're paying for all of their consulting, and we've got an executive planner, a senior planner, environmental planner, a deputy director. I think that in the short run, I would prefer to see us try to shoulder a little more. If you bust at the seams, you come running down the hall, say, look what you did to me. And then, we can deal with then. If the casino vote goes favorably for our city, and we all know what kind of a traffic situation that's gonna, add to what we already have, absolutely. We need to move quicker. But that would be my sense. If I give you a chance to talk me out of it,
Yeah.
but that's basically where my thought process is.
I think, sorry. I can certainly appreciate where the question's coming from, the concern's coming from. My big concern is not being prepared for what could be coming down the pipeline. We have a casino vote at the end, and I know we're not relying on that for any of this budget, but we do have a casino vote coming at the end of August, and if Windward get the license, they're going to be looking to move as quickly as possible.
Sure.
And I want to be prepared as much as possible to make sure that we can accommodate what we can be part of the partnership and make sure that we're not left behind. And if we have the ability to get that transportation engineer planner up to speed as quickly as possible with it in the current budget as proposed, I think we'd be in a much better position to make sure that when WIN does invest in the community, it's invested in the most wisely and most efficient way possible for the most net benefit for the community. And if WIN doesn't get the license, this will position us very well for going after other federal dollars. If you look at other communities like Somerville or Cambridge or other places like that, they have multiple transportation engineers on staff just for this purpose, to make sure that we're designing our neighborhoods in a very friendly manner for the people who are living in those neighborhoods. We're handling the type of traffic growth that we have in the community in the most efficient manner. We're working with state agencies to make sure that they're actually managing the traffic growth in our communities as much as possible. And we're putting the feet to the fire for getting the funding in place and advancing the goals of the community in the most efficient and the most, to the greatest extent possible, is really what I'm trying to say. So I think having the position really helps us, even if we weren't to get that license.
Okay. And one final question, and I appreciate the indulgence of the council. And this might be a question for the mayor, because you were saying the vision about the MBTA. Where would you like to see the improvements in the MBTA? And there was even some mention, I don't want to put words in your mouth, there was a mention of commuter rail access and things of that nature. Where do you see that, where this individual would be helpful in achieving those goals?
Right. So, as you may have heard, the Silver Line, which is the rapid bus that comes from South Station, the airport, is going to be coming out of Demoulas in Chelsea. We're working now with Secretary Davey to get that Silver Line to come up either along 2nd Street or along the tracks there by the market, and come up, or even come up into the square where the central fire station is, or even possibly a stop by where the new housing development is being done by Andy Montelli, the Backyard, and hoping to get that Silver Line extension to either go down on that boulevard to Sullivan Station, or possibly, hopefully, over to Assembly Row, where we can probably get some support from the mayor of Somerville. That's one thing that plan will be working on. The other thing is the commuter rail stop. We actually have that now in the transportation bond bill to study that, the feasibility of having the purple line to stop. That would also be in that general area. As you know, it comes now down by Second Street along the tracks there by the produce market, and it bends around towards the Gateway Mall. Maybe due to the amount of speed it needs, it may not be able to stop there because of the bend, but it could stop down by Second Street where Market Forge area is. So we have a great opportunity now with Market Forge, about 10 acres of land where we're actually working with them now. We had the Triangle, it's called, the project that Tufts University students did. We actually had Secretary Bielecki in the town today looking at that with some developers. We're looking to maybe get a stop there and maybe, reinvigorate Route 16, move away from, the box stores and stuff to really do some, what Stations Landing looks like and what Assembly Road looks like. Route 16 could be that. And that transportation planner is going to work on that. I mean, Jamie now and, Al Bagonzi and Michael Gove, the sustainability coordinator, and Tony Souza, I mean, they're working on the parks, they're working on the Safe Streets initiatives, they're working on green initiatives. It's amazing amount of work that's going on right now. It's not like if you go down there, the GIS coordinator, what she's doing, they're not stopping. They're nonstop. What's going on? We're going to be that next city. We are, regardless if the casino comes or not. We will be the next city. That Somerville and Cambridge and Charlestown on the north end, we're the next city on the bubble. It's going to happen. If we can tie this city to transportation, other than using your vehicle, your values, your property are going to double. It's going to happen in this city, and that's what we're working on. And you know what? Why not try it? Why not put this person in place for a year or 2 or 3 and see what really comes out of it? I mean, you've seen the things that already came, Glendale Park, Mad English Field, the redesign of 7-acre park. Air Force Road, the Mass Works grant for Air Force Road. I can go on the line of different, we're doing, all that work is being done in-house. We just got that grant for Ferry Street, a $9 million grant to do Ferry Street over. We had an engineering service help us, but that was through the Community Development Office. We can talk. We're applying now for a park grant for Sacramone Park. We're applying for a park grant for Florence Street Park. We actually got the money for Florence Street Park. $800,000, $500,000.
Between two different grants, we got $600,000.
$600,000. That's a $600,000 grant that came out of the department. Their salaries combined is $341. That's what everybody. That's what Mozzie and all the existing people already. I mean, so we're getting grants for $600,000, $800,000. This is because of the work of this office. This is a vital department. A lot of the good cities, like Jamie had mentioned, and I hate to say Somerville's one of them, but but they are. And the Somerville and the Cambridges, and they go check out their budget online. Check what their planning office looks like. Their traffic engineers. He's right. They have 3 or 4 of them. We'll have one in-house. We'll still probably use some of the services that we still use. Just for instance, we had to hire a company to do a crosswalk in, what study was that? Yeah, a crosswalk inventory for handicap accessibility, for ramps and so forth. Cost us $20,000. If we could have done that in-house with this person, with our new GIS coordinator and with a traffic planner. So we're spending the money, through consultants and stuff. I'd rather just, we're still gonna, but we can actually save some money with some of these employees. And it's good to, when the MPO is calling a meeting, and I think, Mayor Hanlon, you must remember those notes, the MPO and Tip Day and all these different transportation organizations that have meetings and meetings and meetings. It's good to have the same person go to those meetings, have a presence on that same person being present when they talk about transportation equity. We want, Everett's been, Governor Weldon says it best. Everett's the city that time has forgotten, and no longer it's going to happen. We're making sure that's not going to happen. And we got some good news too with the power plant, and I'm going to be able to share that with you very soon. I know a lot of you had some concerns about the lack of money we're getting from there, so we have some good news. We have some good news coming down the line, and hopefully the casino happens to pop too for us. That'd be great. I know I could say for every department, this is one I hope you wouldn't want to cut from. And Councilor Marchese and I were in the back room, and sometimes this budget is derived from you. from all of you. This is not just mine. This is the budget that I feed off of what you guys have said in Monday night meetings. I feed off the conversations we have at square dedications or city events about, we gotta do the parks over, we gotta do the top roads over, we gotta put the camera systems in, we gotta make the cities. I feed off you. You guys have told me we need new pumpers, we need new ladders. It's not just me. This is you guys. I listen to what you guys say. And I'm sorry to say you guys. That's a terrible phrase, you guys. I sound so uneducated, maybe. But this is more derived from the conversations we've had the last 20 years I've known all of you. You know, and I feel that these positions are not just bloating the budgets. We are seeing results. From my chief of staff, what she's done, to Rich Viscain. Laureen's been a staple here for a long time, and what Jamie's brought to the table. And if you notice, a lot of these people aren't people I know. I'm really trying to really make this city a really professional organization. And I think this is going to add to that. This is going to add to that. We have that Safe Streets initiatives, and a lot of these benefits are going to happen in your ward, Councilor, in Ward 6. Unfortunately, for most of your other 6 and 1 is really where a lot of the benefits are going to happen. You see a lot of like the water. We still have that municipal harbor plan, regardless of when comes or not. We have that municipal harbor plan. We still can go forward with a water taxi shuttle service. We still have Chapter 91 licenses now we can activate along the Malden River. We're going to still go forward with all that stuff. We have money being allotted right now to put in a service road to get to the Haskell's property, right over there behind Mellon Bank. All those, you go back there behind all the Duncan Galvanized and all those junkyards. Well, we're doing a swap right now with Medford. That's actually Medford's property. We're taking that property. We're changing the lines. Medford's getting. Everett has some land in Medford, so we're just changing those lines. But we'll be able to. We have money to build that infrastructure into those areas, to redevelop that area along the GE Parklands. We have Jefferson Properties, who's looking to do a housing development down there, and actually hopefully would build a pedestrian footbridge over to Medford, connecting to our bike path, which will connect over to the possible Silver Line extension and commuter rail stop. This transportation planner will be the key person to do that. Right now, it's Jamie, it's his office, it's us working on that. Me going to meetings in town, he going to meetings in town. It's just we need that presence. I've gone to meetings and I used to see Kurt Atone's representative, Rossi's representative from Cambridge. And they're at the time asking for money, and getting the money. Where we weren't getting anything.
Well, thank you very much for the input.
You're welcome.
I have no further questions on that.
Do we have any more questions? Councilor Hanlon?
When we all leave here, I suppose, we get questions from the community, people in the community, and I happen to be down visiting some people at 66 Main Street, and I really didn't think that they paid much attention. They all watch the budget process.
They watch it.
They sort of blame me. Not blame me, but how come you didn't? And they're talking about taking all kinds of money out of the budget. And I said, well, it's needed and so on and so forth, But what you just said now a minute ago just concerned me a little bit, and I know I'm going to hear from them. You had a survey of crosswalks in the city that you spent $20,000 for?
Right.
That I don't know if that's the whole thing, but I could have done that in an afternoon for free.
You think you could?
I'm serious, because I'm going to hear that. And so what was that all about?
It's all about handicap accessibility. It's all about having curb cuts at certain corners, lights, the right striping, the right size. Jamie, you want to add?
Certainly. So with crosswalks and handicap ramps in particular, there's certain federal and state standards that all crosswalks and sidewalks are theoretically supposed to meet. And whenever a project even touches a sidewalk or a crosswalk, you must bring that crosswalk or sidewalk up to those standards. So it's not just...
Haven't we already done that?
No, we have many...
These crosswalks here aren't up to standards?
Some of them are, yes. Some of them are, but there's many around schools, around parks, in other portions of the square that are not to the standards. And so whenever you do any project...
I hope your answer is acceptable to the people that are going to ask me. Thank you.
Do we have any more questions at this time? Do we have any cuts or anything?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If I could, I've prefaced my remarks at how hard Jamie works in his department, and they do. And I really wish there was enough money to go around for everything that we're trying to do in the community. But I see a little bit of overlap here between the O'Neill Associates. We've got a lot of shoulders in this office. I know that those shoulders are carrying a lot of weight. I would, at this point, make a motion that we reduce this budget by $40,000 with the eye and with the open mind that if things go a certain way with a vote that we're waiting on, or if we find that the office is just splitting at the seams, it can always come before us, and we can always, look to fund the position. But right now, I just see too much overlap. And so my motion is that we reduce this budget by $40,000.
Second motion. Second motion.
Motion made second to, would it be the particular line, would it be the overall? Would it be
No,
the
it's from
salary?
the, just from the budget.
Would it be the salary line by 40?
Salary.
40,000?
It would be salaries,
Clerk,
40.
clerk read the voice vote.
Council Capone.
Yes.
Council Delzula. Council Fleury.
No.
Council Ian.
Yes.
Council Marquez.
No.
Council McConigal.
No.
Council McKinney.
No.
Council Napolitano.
Yes.
Council Scannah. Council Sini.
No.
Council Simonelli.
No.
360.
No, the cut is failed.
Second.
Motion made second to favorable action on the budget as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Budget is passed.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Now we have Mr. Viskey up here. That is on page, oh, geez, the right page here. Page, section 16, page 4 and 5. We'll take 4 first. Do you have any questions for Mr. Viskey? Council Capone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm looking at the line for audit professional services. Could you explain what that is?
Certainly. The bulk of it is the cost of doing the annual audit. Last year, the council approved Powers and Sullivan to be independent auditors that come in. So most of that money is for the annual audit, the federal grants audit. They audit the schools and the air report, and that is the primary money. But there's also professional services that need to be done. We need actuary studies done on our OPEB liability trust. So we're up for a biannual study of our liability for our other post-employment benefits. We also have some initiatives that we're dealing with in-house. What I'd like to do in fiscal year 15, I'd like to have a fraud risk assessment done. It's something that many communities are doing. Go through, assess our internal controls, assess our risks of fraud, not just, it could be stealing fuel, it could be time clocks, it could be any type of issues that the city may have with regard to making sure that we have controls in the city. So I'm looking to do some initiatives with that. I'd like to do some audits of particular grants. I'd like to do some audits of particular departments if the funding allows for it, because as city auditor here, most of my work is done accounting work and budget-wise, et cetera, but the actual ability to go out and do these independent audits sometimes doesn't allow you the time to do so. So I'm hoping to, like I said, just do some more independent audits and some studies, and hopefully reap some benefit out of that and ensure that all of our assets, all of our controls are proper and in place, and any suggestions that come from those audits, try to implement them.
Okay. And on the miscellaneous other expenses line for fiscal year 2013, I see you expended a little over $21,000. Last year, we expended almost $84,000, and we budgeted for $85,000. What type of expenses fall into that category, And why is such a discrepancy between those 2 years?
Yeah, the miscellaneous other expenses, it should be clearer. It's the cost of our accounting software. So in fiscal year 13, we had accounting software called Vadar Systems, and before I arrived here, there was a decision made that we were going to get a new software company to do our general ledger, do our treasury, our collections, purchase and procurement, utility billing, et cetera, and that new software is called SoftWrite. So for fiscal year 14, that $85,000, you'll see we spent $84,000 of it. That's the cost of the annual maintenance for the SoftWrite, but we also are maintaining our annual service for the Vadar because we still have a lot of historical data and we're still doing a lot of ticking and tying on the conversion. So when I first arrived here, we took the general ledger and we converted that. And then we converted our treasury and our collection module. Just 2 weeks ago, we converted our utility billing module, which is our water and sewer enterprise. So that's the cost of just the annual maintenance and licensing of those particular softwares. After next year, I'm hoping to get rid of the Vadar portion of it and just have the SoftWrite. But there's too much data right now for me to feel that I can get rid of that.
Sure, no, and I understand that. It's vital information as well. So, did you say that the SoftWrite, to monitor that is $84,000?
No, that's a combination of both Vadar and SoftWrite.
Once we are successful in the conversion and everything's on one system, what do you anticipate the typical expense for something like that would be?
There's a little bit of a natural increase every year for the maintenance, but that $21,000 that you see in fiscal year 13, that should fall off. That's around the annual cost for the Vadar.
Okay.
The SoftWrite is a more sophisticated, more multi-dimensional software, and with that comes a higher annual price.
So if I do the math here, is it as simple as the math that's in front of me? And
More or less.
About 60,000?
Yeah, it's basically 60,000 and 20,000 in round figures, yes.
Okay. All right.
And there was a substantial upfront cost when we first bought everything, and I believe it was, Larry was showing about $200,000 investment in the actual software, but now it's just the annual maintenance, customer service, et cetera.
Are there any other expenses built into that line, or is that all dedicated to that
That's
data
it.
system?
That's all, just the expenses for the software.
Okay, thank you very much. I have no further questions.
Councilor Hanlon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I see that the budget director is going to be in your department.
Correct.
Okay. What happens
Okay.
to the budget department?
Excuse me?
Is it going to be a budget department?
Well, the administrative code that should be coming before you sometime in the fall will have a division of finance, and in that division of finance falls the budgeting department. So Lorraine being a department of one and sitting physically in the office, it made a lot of sense for us just to combine it so we can share our resources, share our administrative personnel. So Lorraine was gracious enough to come into the auditors department, and we work well together. Lorraine's been great and big help putting this budget together, as a matter of fact.
So she'll be on the first floor now? Okay, thank you.
Do you have any more questions? Was that page 4 and page 5?
Well, page 5's been zeroed out, so Lorraine's salary and her expense budgets have all been collapsed into the Fund 135.
Okay, section 18, 3 and 4. So it's all number 3?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any questions, Councilman Capone?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just in terms of the different duties that the administrative assistant and the senior account clerk are doing, what kind of activities are involved in each one of those positions?
My administrative assistant is really my accounts payable clerk. She basically handles all of every department who puts a requisition in for a purchase and creates purchase order. Those bills have to come in and get paid. So at the monthly Ways and Means,
We get to see those.
you get to see all the fruits of her labor with the warrants, and she really is the watchdog of the city with regard to making sure.
She has my condolences.
Yeah. So she does a great job, and so she coordinates basically all the AP. The other clerk is the payroll clerk. So same idea, all the departments submit their weekly payroll, we get all the timesheets, we verify them, upload them, and then we send it over to the treasurer for weekly and bi-weekly payroll.
Thank you, I have no further questions.
Mr. Fiscay, who's the assistant city auditor?
Ida Cody.
Wait, is she there for? Okay.
Joe Morello.
Joe Morello?
Okay, that's all right, okay. Do we have any questions, any further questions? Do we have any further cuts? Appears here Mr. Fiscay has no unfunded, unfilled positions. Is returning in the city, financial guys returning nothing. Excuse with the, well, he's going to be here anyhow. We have a motion up there to accept. Motion to accept the favor recommendation on the budget. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Mr. Fiscay. I guess I'm lost.
You're welcome.
There'll be page 1. You have to come over there?
Customary thanks. Put them right in the middle.
Okay, you want the camera?
Let's behave, boys.
Please state your name.
We're on page 61.
Good to see you, Mr. McLaughlin. Yes. What we have before us is a budget,
Council President, are we returning any money?
now we'll return $30,000. But the budget is a combination of last year's, the 6 months and 6 months of this year's, when we had the new charter from January on. So we had, prior from August 1 to obviously December 29th and January 1 till June 29th. So this will be our real true budget coming up this year, what we have. We incorporated in the couple of raises that were given to our people working in the office, and also the transfer of the clerk's money also up here. And that's about it.
Any questions, councilors? 61, Councilor Capone?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We're all intimately aware of, what's comprised of this budget and where all the expenses are. What items of equipment are we leasing, do you know?
Oh, we have copiers.
Is it copiers?
We have water machines, updates, yeah.
Okay.
Fax, I don't know if we do the fax. I believe we may lease the fax also. I'm not sure. Whatever office equipment that's probably electrical, I'm sure we lease it all.
Okay, thank you. I have no other questions.
Any other questions on page 16-1? Councilor McGonigal?
I noticed there's no increase in salaries, Mr. President.
No, we, unlike the mayor's budget, we try to keep our taxes low. We don't want to be.
You do have an increase in your budget, by the way, a substantial one.
No, this actually is, this is the true budget. This is what the budget's going to look like.
Through the chair, just in advertising, Mr. President, why have we increased that to $6,000? What are we doing?
Probably anticipating elections coming up this year. Probably come out of our budget,
We also, under the new charter, we do also have to advertise a lot more than we did.
Exactly.
So, you know.
What was the last year? Was it 3? What was it? Yeah, this is the true budget under the charter. Like, this is our first full year under the new charter, what's coming up now.
We also have to advertise all the public hearings, so that derives the advertising budget.
Yep. Us.
Thank you. No further questions.
Any other questions on page 16-1? Okay, let's move to page 18-1. Any questions?
There's a line there for cookies, Joe, increased this year. And maybe went to $32.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Favorable recommendation on the budget.
Councilor Napolitano?
I just like to motion a reduction. I'd like to reduce the reimbursement by $20,000. Seeing as how this is the first cycle that we are working with a reimbursement, the amount that we've been locked into the first half of this year, and as we've broken down the qualifications to get reimbursed, I'd really like to not see that figure over budgeted. So I'd like to reduce the reimbursement from $44,000 to $24,000.
Second motion.
Reduce it by $20,000, yes.
And what item is that, Councilor?
Reimbursement expenses.
Okay.
I'm gonna vote for it. You know,
That was only a half a year, Councilor, now we're going to a full year.
Correct, but the full year, it also includes an increase, 24,000. I don't see us spending each our share of 24,000. So that's why, again, if we've been having a difficult enough time making any cuts, and I think there are a few cuts that we do want to revisit, but, got to go somewhere.
Okay, I do have other questions, I don't know if I have a second on that, but on the motion, I will,
I second the motion on that.
okay. Councilor Hanlon?
Yeah, I don't agree with this, and the reason I don't agree with it is because the fact that if the council chooses not to use it, it doesn't mean that there are some members in the council that choose to use it. And I asked the mayor what the Mass Municipal Association was for. That $9,900 makes us members of that association. They have functions all during the year. And if some of you can't go, I feel sorry for you. Some of us can go, and I'd like to go to those. And believe me, I never said this was a shared expense. If you want to spend $2,000 and I spend $40,000, that's your problem, not mine. This expense is for the city council to go to conventions, to go whatever else they want to do with that money. This is our money for our expenses. We may not spend any of it, and we can return it. There's no problem with it. We're spending $30,000. Are we returning $30,000 this year, Michael?
Yes, we are.
Maybe next year
Maybe next year will be 100, who knows? It's good to have it there in case something does come up.
nice to-
It's like everything else. Mr. Erickson, we're talking about, they want to, want to reduce him, but if it does happen, he needs 2 or 3 months to get some qualified people there. He's not going to go out 1 week prior to Mr. Nguyen saying that, he gets approved there and go hire people then. You got to have people working.
These conventions that I go to, they cost like $300 or $400 to go, and that comes out of this amount of money. And I know that I had a request from one of the other councilors asking me, is it worthwhile going? Absolutely, positively. You learn more from there than you learn from sitting in these chambers. Because these are people that are all over, you build networking with the other councilors and selectmen in the state. It's well worth going to, and the first time I was on this and I was a city clerk, I didn't go to the convention, and the mayor at the time asked me, he said, did you enjoy the convention, John? I said, John, what? I don't go to those parties. He said, they're not parties. And he made me go to the next one, and he was absolutely correct. They have dinner and everything afterwards and all that stuff, but there's important things that goes on at these meetings, and I don't want this money to be reduced so that we can't go to them. When I know that once we start reporting on how good they are, everybody will want to go if they can. I'm not saying everybody can go, but if they can. So I'm going to be opposed to,
Councilor
well, I don't want to say what I do.
Thank you. One quick question, and then I want to comment on this. Mr. Mayor, did you say that $9,900 line item that was in your budget, did that cover Mass Municipal dues for every employee in the city? Does that include us?
It includes the membership, but the conventions are about $150. You gotta pay for your parking and so forth. Sometimes you have to buy your own lunch. There are some expenses involved, and I have to agree with the mayor. I kind of felt the same way. Sometimes going out, like leaving the state and going to some of these mayors' conventions, and you really do learn a lot. A lot of these cities and towns doing different things, saving some money, and I think it's in a lot of this. I did see a lot of selectmen. I did see the mayor at the last convention in Boston, where Mike Weidmer was talking, and the governor was there, and it's a good tool to network with certain state officials, secretaries of the state, transportation or education. When you need something, at least they know your name and they know your face. You actually partake in those events. So they are. I had that feeling that maybe Councilor Napolitano has, that you feel like you're doing something wrong, but they are actually worthwhile to go to. You do learn a lot of good stuff at these different meetings.
All right, thank you. And I do know that, and this is to the body, I do know that the charter incorporated the stipend. It's a reimbursable type of thing. It's not there was a lot of misconception out there that this was part of our salary, that we're each going to get $4,000, which is not the case. You've got the amount that you're going to be paid for serving on the council. There is $4,000 available per counselor to reimbursable expenses that are legitimate and related to city business. And my understanding is that it's a community fund, that it isn't carved up $4,000 each. It's what's there, and then the membership uses what they want to use. And I think that attendance at these various conventions does have its value. I understand that there's a lot to be learned out there, but from my own personal point of view, if I'm going to sit here and I'm going to ask other departments to cut, I'm going to lead by example, and I'm going to be cutting.
Okay, will the clerk please call for the vote?
Okay, and the reduction of 20,000 by Council Capone.
Yes.
By Council Del Sola.
Yes.
By Council DeFlorio.
No.
By Council Anfulen.
No.
By Council Marquez.
No.
By Council McConaughey.
No.
By Council McKinnon.
No.
By Council Napolitano.
Yes.
By Council Suchana. By Council Simony.
No.
By Council Simonelli. We have 3-6.
That order is sealed. I'll take, we'll excuse with the customary thanks.
Thank you.
Take a motion
Motion to accept the budget as it is, right?
Second motion.
accept the budget as a whole and refer to the meeting on Monday night, the 23rd. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman?
Do I have a, okay,
Chairman.
on the,
I just want to rise on a point of information. I'm just trying to, I want to get some additional information here. There's been some discussion back and forth that there may be some other areas that we'd like to revisit. Is it appropriate to revisit those potential cuts at this point or Monday night? That's my question.
I think it's more appropriate to have the department heads here, so the mayor can ask them all to come on Monday night. That might be your best bet.
I'll hold.
Yeah.
I'll hold my motion till then.
I agree.
The motion I would make then, if we could invite the various department heads to make sure that they're available, so Monday night's meeting, give them the heads up. I appreciate that.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
so we want to invite all the department heads to Monday night's meetings.
Correct.
I have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second, okay. All in favor? All opposed? The ayes have it. We have adjourned.